Aisha Khan stood in front of the giant military training gate with her bag on her shoulder and her heart beating loudly in her chest. She had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that she was finally here, the place looked even tougher than she expected. The air smelled like dust, sweat, and discipline. Soldiers were shouting orders, boots were hitting the ground, and whistles were blowing everywhere. This was not an ordinary place. This was a battlefield before the real battlefield. Aisha was the only girl in the entire batch of new recruits. Boys around her were laughing, joking, and showing off their strength. Some were doing push-ups just to look fit, some were comparing muscles, and some were already staring at Aisha like she had stepped into the wrong world. One boy nudged another and whispered loudly, "What is she doing here? This is not a fashion show." Another one laughed and said, "She won't last 1 week. Total dead weight." Aisha heard every word. She kept her face calm, but inside, the words hurt. She didn't come here to prove anything to them. She came here to prove something to herself, something she had promised long ago to her late father, who once served in the army. Before he passed away, he held her hand and said, "Courage is not about being strong. It's about not giving up even when everyone expects you to fall." Those words were now her shield. The first roll call began. The trainer, a tall and strict officer named Sergeant Imran, looked at every recruit with sharp eyes. His voice was like thunder. "You are not special. You are not heroes. You are not soldiers yet. You are nothing until you earn it. And here we don't care who you are outside. Boy, girl, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. Only discipline and effort matter here." He paused when he saw Aisha. His face didn't change, but the recruits behind her smirked. Someone whispered, "He's already wondering why she's here." Training started immediately. No rest, no welcome speech, no kindness. They were ordered to do 200 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and a long run around the training ground. Aisha struggled. Her arms shook, her breathing became heavy, and sweat rolled down her face. The boys around her completed the tasks faster, making her look weak and slow. One of the boys, Rayhan, the loudest among them, laughed as he passed her and said, "I told you, dead weight. You'll slow us all down." Others chuckled and continued running. Aisha didn't reply. She didn't have the energy to argue. Her body was tired, but her heart was stubborn. She whispered to herself, "Not giving up. Not today." After the exercises, they were taken to the dormitories. Aisha got a small bunk bed in the corner of the room. As she unpacked, she could hear boys talk loudly about her. Why did they even allow her in? She'll quit soon. Just wait. She won't survive the first field test. She wanted to scream, but she stayed silent. She knew that if she reacted, they would think they were right. So instead of replying, she tied her shoelaces tighter, fixed her bed, and prepared for the next day. That night, while everyone slept, Aisha stayed awake. Her body ached, her hands hurt, and her mind was full of doubt. She looked at her reflection in the small mirror by the bed and asked herself, "Can I really do this? Or are they right?" Then she remembered her mother's words, "People will doubt you. Let them. Just don't doubt yourself." She decided something at that moment. She would not leave. She would not quit. She would not break. Tomorrow would be harder than today, but she would show up, again and again, because she wasn't here to be liked. She was here to earn respect, even if it took every breath she had. She lay down, closed her eyes, and whispered to herself before sleeping, "One day they will see. Not now, but one day." That day was still far away, but it was coming, because the girl they called dead weight was already turning into something they had never seen before. The sun had barely risen when the whistle blew, calling all recruits to the field. Aisha rushed out with the others, still sore from the previous day's training. Today was going to be their first real test, the timed field march. Each recruit had to carry a heavy backpack loaded with gear, run across uneven ground, climb a small hill, and reach the finish line before the timer ended. If anyone failed, the whole team would be punished. The moment Sergeant Imran explained the challenge, the boys exchanged confident looks. They had done something like this before in school or sports. But Aisha? Everyone was sure she would fail. Rayhan smirked and said loudly, "Hope you don't slow us down today. Dead weight." His friends laughed. Aisha didn't answer, but her hands tightened on the straps of her backpack. She knew this test wasn't just a run. It was a chance to prove she deserved to be there. The whistle blew. Everyone started running. Dust flew up, boots hit the ground hard, and the air filled with heavy breathing. Aisha pushed herself to move faster, but the weight of the backpack made her steps slow. Every few seconds, someone ran past her. Some even looked back just to see her struggling. Her legs were burning. Her shoulders felt like they were carrying a mountain. Her throat was dry, but she didn't stop. She kept telling herself, just one more step, then one more. Halfway through the track, Aisha slipped on a patch of mud and fell hard. Her knees hit the ground, and pain shot up her legs. A few boys behind her laughed. One of them said, "Told you, she's not made for this." Another shouted, "Go home." Rayhan shook his head and shouted, "Get up or quit. You're holding us back." Aisha pressed her hands on the ground and tried to get up. Her arms trembled. She felt embarrassed, weak, angry. But most of all, she felt a fire inside her. She got back on her feet, even though her knees were bleeding. But by then, most of the group had already reached the top of the hill. She was far behind. She kept pushing, but when she finally crossed the finish line, it was too late. She had failed the test. The team stood there, sweating and tired, but instead of relief, their faces were full of frustration. Rayhan marched toward her and pointed angrily. "Because of you, we all get punished now. I knew you were useless. You're not a soldier. You're a burden." Others joined in. Not all shouted, but many stared at her like she was the reason for their suffering. The punishment was 100 extra push-ups for everyone, and the hate in their eyes made it feel heavier than any backpack. Aisha wanted to scream that she did her best. She wanted to tell them that no one was born strong. She wanted to remind them that even they were weak once. But she said nothing. She just dropped to the ground and did the push-ups with everyone else, even though her arms were shaking. After training, she returned to her room slowly. Her body hurt. Her heart hurt more. She sat on her bed and took off her shoes. Her socks were soaked in blood from the blisters. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. She didn't want to cry, not because crying was weak, but because she wanted to save her strength for what mattered. That night, while the others were laughing in the dining hall, Aisha stayed back. She cleaned her wounds, wrapped her knees, and looked at the wall in front of her. She realized one painful truth. It wasn't just about passing a test. It was about surviving in a place where no one believed in her. And if she wanted respect, she would have to earn it the hard way. She stood up, walked outside quietly, and went to the field while everyone else was resting. Under the dim lights, with no one watching, she wore her backpack again and started running. Slowly, painfully, but she didn't stop. She whispered to herself, "If they think I am dead weight, let them. I won't stay that way." She didn't want revenge. She wanted transformation. Tonight was not about beating others. It was about beating who she was yesterday. And that is how the girl who failed the first test began preparing to change the entire battlefield. Every night when the lights in the dorm went off and the other recruits fell asleep, Aisha quietly got up from her bed. She slipped on her shoes, picked up her heavy backpack, and left the room without making a sound. The camp was silent at that hour. No shouting, no commands, no mockery. Just the distant sound of wind passing through the field. This became her secret routine. She trained when no one was watching. She ran with the same heavy bag that had almost defeated her during the field test. She ran until her legs shook and her breathing hurt. She climbed ropes until her palms burned. She did push-ups until her arms could no longer hold her weight. She was not fast. She was not strong. But she was stubborn. Sometimes she fell. Sometimes she cried. But she never stopped. One night, after she collapsed on the ground, staring up at the stars, she whispered, "I won't let them be right about me." And then she got up again. But what Aisha didn't know was that someone had been watching her. Captain Farouk, one of the senior instructors, often stayed late to check the grounds. He had noticed the silent figure training under the dim camp lights. At first, he thought it was just another recruit worried about failing. But when he saw it was the same girl everyone mocked, he was surprised. He watched her night after night. No complaints, no excuses, just hard work. She reminded him of something he once believed. Real soldiers are not born strong. They become strong when the world gives them no other choice. Still, he didn't walk up to her. He didn't encourage her. He wanted to see if she was serious or just desperate. And every night, her answer was the same. She came back. Meanwhile, daytime training didn't get easier. The other recruits continued to ignore her. Some moved away from her during drills. Others made comments like, "Why don't you just quit?" Or "Go home. This is not your world." Even Rayhan, the loudest one, didn't miss a chance to humiliate her. But something was changing. Not on the outside, but inside Aisha. She started running a little faster in the mornings. She finished push-ups without collapsing like before. Her grip became stronger. Her breathing became steadier. She began doing small tasks better, climbing ropes quicker, lifting gear with more control. Still not perfect. Still not the best. But better than yesterday. And that was enough for her. One afternoon during weapons handling class, a recruit dropped his rifle by mistake. It almost hit the ground, but Aisha grabbed it first. Quick, steady, alert. Some boys looked at her, surprised. No one said anything, but a silent question appeared in their eyes. Was she improving? Rayhan didn't like that. He walked close to her and whispered, "Don't think one lucky moment makes you a soldier." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her actions were starting to speak louder than his insults. That night, while she was doing her usual secret training, her hands suddenly slipped while climbing the rope and she fell hard on her back. The pain shot through her body, and for the first time she thought of giving up. Tears filled her eyes, and she lay there, staring at the dark sky. Just then, she heard footsteps. She quickly wiped her tears and tried to stand straight. It was Captain Farouk. He looked at her for a moment, not with pity, but with a calm, serious expression. "You can fool the recruits," he said slowly, "but you cannot fool effort, and effort never lies." Aisha didn't know what to say. No one in the academy had spoken to her with respect before. Captain Farouk continued, "A soldier is not the one who never falls. A soldier is the one who gets up every time, even when no one is watching." Then he gently placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "Keep going, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right." That was the first time anyone had encouraged her. That night, something changed forever. She was not just training her body anymore. She was training her spirit. She no longer ran to escape shame. She ran to build strength. She wasn't trying to silence their insults. She was trying to awaken her own voice. The girl who once fell in the mud during the field test was turning into someone no one was prepared for. A soldier in silence. A warrior in progress. A storm that hadn't arrived yet, but soon would. After the obstacle mission where Aisha surprised everyone by carrying Rayhan and helping the whole team finish the challenge, the atmosphere in the camp quietly shifted. No one said it out loud, but the recruits who once laughed at her now looked at her differently. They didn't compliment her, they didn't thank her, and they definitely didn't apologize, but something had changed in their eyes. They were not laughing anymore. Aisha noticed it, but she didn't let it fill her with pride. She knew respect wasn't earned in one moment, it was built over time. So, while the others returned to normal routine, she continued her silent training at night, just like before. But this time, she wasn't training to prove anything to them. She was training because she wanted to be better than the Aisha she was yesterday. Some recruits became quieter around her. Some gave her small nods. Some even moved aside to give her space in the lunch line. None of this seemed big, but it was a sign the mocking had stopped. The world had not accepted her, but it had paused to rethink her. But not everyone was ready to change. Rayhan, who had been carried by Aisha in front of everyone, was the most uncomfortable. His ego had been hit harder than his injured leg. He didn't thank her. He didn't talk to her. Instead, he pretended the incident never happened, but deep down, he knew something had broken inside him. His belief that she was weak. One evening, while the recruits were cleaning their rifles, one of the boys finally said what everyone was thinking. "She's not like we thought." Another replied, "Yeah, she didn't give up on us, even when we gave up on her." Rayhan overheard them and got angry. He slammed his gun down and said harshly, "Don't start worshipping her. One act doesn't make her a hero. She just got lucky." The room went silent. No one agreed with him, but no one argued either. They simply let his words die in the air. While all this was happening, Captain Farouk had already reported Aisha's performance to the higher command. He didn't tell her. He didn't praise her. He simply observed, like a silent judge waiting for the right moment. The next morning, Aisha was called to the office. She walked in with a straight posture, unsure of what she had done wrong. The commanding officer, Colonel Adnan, looked at her with interest, not surprise. He had already read the report. "You carried your teammate through the obstacle mission?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she answered calmly. "You didn't request help?" "No, sir." "And you didn't leave him behind to finish the task faster?" "No, sir. A team finishes together or fails together." The colonel slowly nodded, impressed by the confidence in her voice. She wasn't boasting. She was simply stating her belief. Most recruits, when called to the office, walked out either punished or nervous. But Aisha walked out with something different, a quiet sense that she had been seen. Not just noticed, seen. But still, she didn't celebrate. She went back to training as usual. Meanwhile, whispers began spreading in the camp. "I heard she got called by the colonel. She might get selected for something special. Maybe she's getting a recommendation." Curiosity grew. The same people who once avoided her now watched her carefully. Even during lunch, when she sat alone as usual, no one laughed at her anymore. They didn't join her, not yet, but the silence was no longer hateful. It was thoughtful. One night, as she was returning from her secret training, she saw something surprising. One of the boys was doing extra pull-ups alone. Then another was trying to run with a weighted bag. Slowly, others began pushing themselves too. They didn't say it, but Aisha had started something. She didn't inspire them with speeches. She inspired them with effort. She didn't lead from the front. She led by example. Even Rayhan felt the change. One morning, he tried running before dawn like she did. But when he saw her already ahead, he stopped midway. He wasn't ready to admit it, but a part of him knew. She wasn't the one slowing them down anymore. She was the one raising the bar. Aisha didn't need applause. She didn't need praise. Her journey wasn't loud, it was steady. And even though she didn't know it yet, every step she took was taking her closer to the moment when the entire base would stand still, and the commander himself would salute her. The girl they called dead weight was already becoming the weight that held the entire team together. The final and toughest challenge of the training program was announced. A 48-hour survival mission. No beds, no rest, no prepared food, no comfort. The recruits had to move through the jungle with full combat gear, complete tasks, avoid enemy ambushes, and reach the extraction point before time ran out. They would have to depend on teamwork, leadership, and strategy. One mistake could fail the whole team. Everyone was tense. Even the strongest recruits looked nervous. But Aisha? She was quiet, calm, and focused. She had already survived something harder. Being hated, mocked, and doubted every single day. The jungle was nothing compared to that. Before the mission began, Sergeant Imran gave one last warning. Out there, rank doesn't matter. Only smart choices and strength of mind matter. You will not have radios for long. You will not have help. You either survive together or not at all. The recruits nodded. They were divided into teams, and by fate, Aisha was in the same group as Rayhan and the others who once made fun of her. The mission started. The first few hours went fine. They walked through the rough forest, crossed a small stream, and survived the heat. But after sunset, everything changed. The jungle turned dark, the path became confusing, and the radio suddenly stopped working. just as the sergeant had warned. Panic spread in the group. Rayhan, who was usually loud and confident, looked unsure. One of the boys said, "We're lost." Another said, "We need to go back." Someone suggested staying in one place until morning, but that was against the mission rule. Waiting meant failing. Then, for the first time since the academy started, all eyes turned to Aisha. She didn't panic. She didn't complain. She looked up at the sky, studied the direction of the stars, checked the map, and said calmly, "The extraction point is northeast. If we walk straight from here, we'll reach the river before sunrise. And the river leads to the checkpoint." Rayhan stared at her. "How do you know all this?" She replied simply, "I studied. That's what nights are for." No one argued. They followed her. Hours passed. They walked through thorny bushes, muddy ground, and slippery slopes. Some recruits were tired, some were scared, but Aisha kept going, and so they kept going too. Whenever someone felt weak, she slowed down for them. Whenever someone slipped, she helped them up. She wasn't just walking them to safety. She was leading them. By early morning, just as she predicted, they reached the river. The boys who once called her dead weight now looked at her with something new in their eyes: trust. But the mission wasn't over. Before they could reach the extraction point, a simulated enemy attack took place. Smoke bombs went off. Gunfire sound effects played. Half the team ducked in fear. Aisha didn't freeze. She shouted, "Stay low! Move behind the rocks! Stick together!" Her voice was strong. Not the voice of the girl who once cried in silence, but the voice of a soldier. They followed her orders and crossed safely. Not one man was killed in the simulation. After 48 long hours, dirty, tired, hungry, and exhausted, they reached the final point. Aisha was the first one to step over the marker, but she didn't celebrate. She turned back and helped the last tired recruit finish. Only then did she sit down. When the mission ended, the officers checked the reports. Only one team had made it through the mission without losing a single member. Aisha's team. They had succeeded not because of the strongest recruit, not because of the loudest leader, but because of the one person everyone had once rejected. Rayhan stood there, speechless. He wanted to say thank you, but pride stopped his voice. The other recruits just stared at her, no jokes, no insults, no whispers. Just respect. Captain Farouk stood in the distance, watching her quietly. He didn't smile, but there was pride in his eyes. He already knew something the others didn't. What was coming next would change everything. Aisha didn't know it yet, but the mission was more than a test. It was a final measurement of leadership. The girl they once mocked was no longer just improving. She was rising higher than anyone expected. She had become the person the team depended on. And soon, the whole base would know her name. The day of the final ceremony arrived. The long weeks of training, sweat, failures, pain, and hard work were finally coming to an end. All the recruits were lined up in their uniforms, boots shining, back straight, waiting for the results. Families were invited, officers were present, and the parade ground looked proud and polished. It was the day where names would be called, some for awards, some for promotions, and some just for completion. Everyone was excited, but Aisha stood quietly in the last row. She didn't expect anything. She had trained, she had survived, she had improved, and that was enough for her. She didn't need a medal to prove her journey was worth it. But something was different that day. The recruits who once ignored her were now giving her small nods. Not friendly, not emotional, just respectful. Even Rayhan stood near her in silence. He still hadn't said a word to her after the survival mission, but the anger in his eyes was gone. Something else was there now: acceptance. The ceremony began. One by one, names were called and awards were handed out. Best fitness, best shooting skills, best discipline, best team spirit, all the usual categories. Aisha clapped for everyone who received something. She didn't feel jealous. She didn't feel sad. She felt grateful she had made it this far. She remembered her first day. The whispers, the laughter, the pain in her knees after falling, the nights of silent training under the dim lights. And now, she stood as a soldier, not broken, not bitter, but stronger. Then, the chief announcer said something unexpected. Now we will announce the Best Tactical Leadership Award, an award given only to the recruit who not only performed well, but helped others perform well too. A leader is not the one who stands in front, but the one who makes sure no one is left behind. Everyone went silent. And this time, this award goes to a pause, and then a name no one expected. Recruit Aisha Khan. The ground froze. Not a sound. Not even a clap. Everyone turned to look at her. The same girl they once laughed at, doubted, ignored, called dead weight. Aisha didn't move at first. Even she couldn't believe it. She looked straight ahead, her heart beat loud in her chest. The announcer repeated, Recruit Aisha Khan. Step forward. She walked toward the stage. Not fast, not scared, just steady. The medal was placed in her hand, but the real moment was yet to come. Because then it happened. The highest-ranking officer, the commander of the entire base, stood up from his seat. He didn't shake her hand. He didn't smile. Instead, in front of everyone, he gave her a full military salute. A salute is not a small gesture in the army. A salute is respect. A salute is honor. A salute is recognition of someone worthy. And the commander was saluting her. The entire parade ground went silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. For a moment, time paused. Rayhan's eyes widened. The boys who once called her a mistake lowered their heads. The ones who doubted her felt a sting in their chest. Because now it was not them judging her. It was the commander. And he had already spoken without saying a word. Aisha didn't smile proudly. She didn't cry. She simply returned the salute with confidence and calmness. That salute was not just for the moment. It was for every night she trained alone, every insult she swallowed, every time she got up after falling. She didn't win an award that day. She won respect, the rarest award in the army. When she returned to her row, something unexpected happened. Rayhan stepped aside, allowing her space to stand in front of him. It wasn't an apology in words, it was an apology in action. Someone whispered from behind, with real emotion this time. She earned it. Not because she was the strongest. Not because she was the fastest. But because she never quit. Because she didn't break when they tried to break her. Because she rose even when no one believed she could. The girl they once called dead weight had just been saluted by the highest command in the base. And for the first time, everyone finally understood. She was never the weak one. The moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. The entire base was called outside and lined up in attention. Soldiers stood in neat rows, boots straight, backs firm, eyes forward. Even the ones who used to make fun of Aisha were standing there, confused and curious. No one understood why this sudden gathering was happening. Whispers spread among them like wind. Some thought it was a surprise inspection, some believed a high-ranking officer was arriving. But nobody expected what they were about to witness. A few minutes later, Commander Rayhan walked out. His uniform was perfectly pressed, his medals shining in the sun. The soldiers quickly straightened up even more. Everyone knew Commander Rayhan was strict, respected, and never wasted time. If he called a gathering, it meant something serious. But this time, there was something different in his eyes. He was carrying a small folded flag and a document in his hand. The atmosphere felt heavy. Everyone stood silent, waiting. Then, in front of everyone, Aisha was called forward. The same Aisha they once called dead weight. The girl who was mocked, ignored, and treated like a burden. But today, she walked differently. Not with shame. Not with fear. She walked with confidence. Her uniform was neat, her eyes focused, her steps strong. Even the ones who bullied her couldn't look her in the eye. They knew something big was about to happen, and for the first time they felt small. Commander Rayhan stepped forward, stood right in front of her, and looked at her with respect. Then something happened that silenced the whole ground. He saluted her. Not a casual salute. Not a friendly salute. A full, formal military salute. The kind only given to someone who has earned true honor. Every soldier froze. No one could believe what they were seeing. A commander, who outranked everyone there, was saluting the same girl they laughed at. Aisha didn't salute back immediately. She stood still, her eyes filling with tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of pride. Tears she had earned with struggle, pain, and courage. The commander's voice then echoed across the ground. He announced that Aisha had saved the lives of 3 soldiers during the mission. When everyone else had panicked, she didn't. When others were frozen with fear, she moved. She acted with skill, bravery, and intelligence. She carried an injured man on her back through enemy fire. She refused to leave anyone behind. She didn't act like dead weight. She acted like a hero. The soldiers now looked at her with disbelief. Their faces showed regret. The same mouths that called her useless were now silent. The same eyes that rolled at her were now filled with respect. Some even looked ashamed. Commander Rayhan continued. He said Aisha had done something most soldiers fail to do. She proved her strength not with words, but with actions. She did not fight back against insults. She didn't argue. She didn't try to prove herself loudly. She stayed focused, she trained harder, and she waited for her moment. And when that moment came, she saved the team. She didn't just save lives. She saved the honor of the entire unit. Then the commander handed her a medal given only to soldiers who show exceptional bravery under fire. As he pinned it on her uniform, the applause finally started. It wasn't small. It wasn't forced. It grew louder and louder until the entire ground was clapping for her. Some soldiers even looked at her with tears in their eyes. They realized they had misjudged her completely. The girl they doubted had become the person they owed their lives to. Aisha finally saluted back, not out of ego but out of respect. Respect for the uniform, the commander, and the journey that brought her to that moment. The applause didn't stop, but something even more powerful happened. One by one, the soldiers who once insulted her came forward and saluted her too. Not because they were told to, but because they knew she deserved it. Aisha didn't smile in arrogance. She just stood strong. She had learned something important. Real strength is quiet. Real courage is patient. Real worth is proven, not spoken. For years, people called her dead weight. But today, she carried the weight of honor, respect, and victory. And in that moment, everyone finally understood something. The ones who look the weakest can turn out to be the strongest. The ones who are ignored can become unforgettable. And sometimes the person everyone mocks becomes the hero everyone salutes.